Hello, I'm Jake Lynch, and I'd like to tell you about my novel, Blood on the Stone. Imagine a world where sectarian divisions are inflamed and exploited for political gain. A world where evidence and due process are the last lines of defence against the hatred and fury of the mob. Okay, so maybe these days that's not too much of a stretch. But if those are the political ills of our own time, then they applied in spades in the England of 1681. And that's the setting for my story. King Charles II brings the English Parliament to Oxford amid a security scare over a so-called popish plot against the crown. Now, history would later expose that as bogus, but at the time it was used to justify a crackdown against members of a persecuted minority, England's few remaining Catholics. Only here's the thing, then as now, some people refused to go along with it. They stood up for justice and fair dealing instead. One of them is my hero, Luke Sandys, chief officer of bailiffs and the nearest thing in the period to a modern-day detective. As MPs gather in the city, one of them is found stabbed to death, William Harbord, leader of an extremist Protestant group calling for even harsher treatment of Catholics. It puts Luke into a race against time. He must solve the murder before it can be used to provoke the crowd and trigger a bloodbath. Along the way, he must also rescue a young woman from a gruesome ritualistic death and thwart a treasonous plot. How does he do all that? Well, help me to publish the novel and you can find out. This is publication by crowdfunding. Instead of waiting until it's published and then buying it, I'm asking you to pledge in advance to buy it when it's published. Pledge more and you can get more. Join me for dinner here in Sydney, or when I'm back in the UK for a walking tour of Oxford, where we can see some of the historic buildings featured in Blood on the Stone and enjoy an agreeable supper and discuss the ideas in the novel. Oxford in the 17th century was a crucible of the so-called scientific revolution, which in turn underpinned the political values of the European Enlightenment. It's often said that these days Enlightenment values are under threat. Now, Blood on the Stone is intended to entertain. That's why it's a mystery as well as a history. But it'll do so in a way, hopefully, which reminds us how people have stood up for those values across the ages.